Now, in memoriam.
She was one of a kind. We are lesser now with the loss of her old Southern grace.
Mr. President.
Minority Leader.
In life, we all hate changes. They're so difficult to accept. And the last month or so, I've had a lot of changes in my life. One of the changes that has been so troubling for me is that we have lost a friend in the Senate. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "Sorrow makes us all children again, destroys all differences of intellect. The wisest know nothing." Mr. President, the member of the family that we've lost is Mary Arnold. She is such a wonderful, pleasant, kind, thoughtful person. Anyone would recognize her, even though they wouldn't know her by name, simply because of her description. Beautiful white hair, elegantly dressed every day, a wonderful smile. She never drew attention to herself, but she was so good for the institution. She sat right back here every day. Every day we were in session. And she was the best when things weren't going so well. She was here for more than 2 decades. She was the best when things were real tumultuous here on the floor. Somebody wanted an easel for a chart. That was available. She directed the pages as to what they were supposed to do and not do, and she always did it with such a pleasantness. I first recognized Mary Arnold when her daughter worked here. She was a Republican floor person. She, like her mom, had this great disarming smile. And I saw I was not in the city when the funeral took place and was unable to attend, but I saw in the program a picture of the deceased Mary Arnold. But it looked just exactly like her daughter. Exactly. You could have, it could have passed for her daughter. She came to Washington over 40 years ago. Born in the late 1930s in Jonesboro, Arkansas. Attended Memphis State University and worked as a flight attendant, a stewardess as they used to be called, and still all the stewards and stewardesses are very attractive people. But in the old days, that was a requirement. You had to look real good, and Mary Arnold looked real good, and I'm sure she was a great flight attendant, a stewardess, as we used to refer to them. She's worked for a number of members of Congress, Congressman Harvey of Indiana, Representative Zion. She worked for the Sergeant at Arms, of course. But she was a wonderful person. I had conversations with her. She loved animals, especially these ugly little dogs that people fall in love with, Boston Terriers. And she was in love with her Boston Terriers. She was a wonderful person. And as I say, Mr. President, I feel coming into this chamber today and not having her back there is a tremendous loss to me and to the Senate. I want her wonderful daughter, Mary Elizabeth, to know that she will be missed. Her spirit is something that I think all in the Senate should have a little bit of. And so my thoughts are with Mary wherever she might be. And my love and respect for her family is paramount as a result of the wonderful person that she was.
Mr. President, as the Democratic leader has so eloquently described, it is hard to imagine that the smiles and the charm of Mary Miller Arnold will no longer grace the Senate floor. I've had the opportunity to talk to daughter Mary several times since her mom's demise, and the love and the respect that bond that a mother and a daughter together share is magnificent. It sparkles so much in her voice today. Mary was a fellow Tennessean, and I think she'll be remembered most for her uncanny ability to very efficiently enforce the Senate rules as she sat at this door without sacrificing at any point in time her unfailingly, her consistent professionalism, her dedication, her polite demeanor. The Senate simply could not function, as we all know, without a knowledgeable staff and a committed staff. We 100 senators are, for the most part, the face of the Senate, but it's people like Mary who are here day after day, the cogs in the wheels behind it, who keep this Senate moving along, keep it ticking. She was the pulse of the Senate in many ways, and to Mary's friends and to her family, let me just say that our thoughts and prayers are with you during these difficult days ahead. To quote Senator Byrd from the other day, she was one of a kind. She had a tangible presence here on the Senate floor, and we are lesser now with the loss of her old Southern grace.
Mr. President.
Senator from Illinois.
Mr. President, I want to join with the Majority Leader and the Democratic Leader in tribute to Mary Miller Arnold, who served us so well in the United States Senate and recently passed away. We join in expressing our condolences to Mary Arnold's family, her husband Ed, her son Edwin Jr., and her daughter Mary Elizabeth. Her sudden and unexpected death comes as a shock to all of us as we return to the Senate chamber expecting to see her smiling face as we have for so many years. I'm so used to seeing her sitting near the door there on the bench where the Democratic staffers sit to my left. What an impression she made every single day that I saw her. Perfect posture, impeccably dressed, every hair in place, always gracious, always professional, carried herself with such dignity and grace. Those who watch C-SPAN across America would know her instantly because she was part of the Senate process, part of the Senate family. She sat just as straight, just as polished, even before there were C-SPAN cameras. She did this because of the respect she had for the Senate and for her role, which was very important. She loved the Senate and everything it stood for. She considered it a privilege to work in the United States Capitol, as we all do, and especially on the Senate floor. I didn't know until the other day when we looked into her background that Mary actually began working for a Republican congressman from Illinois, Roger Zion. She moved to Washington in 1960 with her husband Ed, who had taken a job with a congressman from Indiana. Her daughter Mary Elizabeth worked in the Republican cloakroom for several years while she was a law student. As for Mary's own political affiliation, I don't have any idea. She was a true professional, and it's to her credit that she was in service to the Democratic side of the aisle but had equal respect for both sides of the aisle. She was beyond partisanship. She really was a part of the whole Senate family. She treated everyone with such respect and professionalism, so gracious to junior staffers and pages and senators alike. She performed so many countless acts of kindness in the 21 years she served here, and people are now speaking out about those, and I'm glad they shared some of them. If a co-worker needed a kind word, Mary was one of the first. Once a co-worker had financial difficulties. Mary found out about it and lent that person some money, then gently refused to accept full repayment. She was such a good and generous person. Mary will be missed. Mr. President, I yield the floor.
Later.